I'm William Cooper, and you're listening to the Hour of the Time. Ladies and gentlemen, have some bad news. Tonight, apparently we're not on. Apparently, we're not on shortwave, but we are on satellite. Last night, Anthony J. Hilder was attacked by 4 assailants in front of his home in Los Angeles and was shot. Yes, folks, last night, Anthony J. Hilder was attacked in front of his home in Los Angeles and was shot in the stomach. He is now in the hospital. He's undergone surgery. And I'm going to be talking about Anthony, about our friendship, about a lot of other things. So, don't go away. All the music you're going to hear tonight was produced, written, performed by Anthony J. Hilder and, of course, Evan Sweetwater. You could make it. Welcome to the new world order. Never in women's history has so few taken so much from so many as America's Illuminati and their warlords of Wall Street and Washington. In just 8 years, these banksters and international government gangsters took us from the greatest creditor nation to the largest debtor nation on earth. Our standard of living has dropped like a rock for 4 out of every 5 Americans. They have foreclosed on our homes, our farms, our factories. They've exported your jobs and surrendered our arms. They want a new world order. A new world order. A new world order. A new world order. The Illuminati wants you to be a slave from birth to grave. The banksters own the Federal Reserve. It's private. They own it. It's neither federal nor a reserve. The cashiers make that fiat funny money stuff you call dollars for 2 pennies. They lend it back to us at full face value, then charge you interest. You get the debt. They get the interest. They get the gold. You get the check. What is a new world order? A new world order. A new world order. It is a big idea. It is a big idea. A new world order. Is the chapter. Human Nazi, 1994. I'm right. I'm bold. I'm sure. The CFR controls the CIA, the FBI, the ATF, and the FDA. They don't give a damn about the POW and the MIA. Hillary, Billary, Hitler, Marx, and Mao. They want a new world order. They want it all. And they want it now. This Illuminati imports the dope that create the chaos. Stringers out. Crush our hope. They created AIDS. It's their designer disease. To bring you down. To grovel on your knees. They want to vaccinate your child and give them the mark. They want to illuminate you and keep you in the dark. They want you to paper it with plastic, surrender your soul. They want you under their thumb, under their control. What is a new world order? A new world order. A new world order. It is a big idea. Rule the nation. It is a big idea. Indoctrination. A new world order. A new world order. The people are the God. A new world order. A new world order. New world order. And not more. It is a big idea. A new world order. It is a big idea. A new world order.
A new world order. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but I've known Anthony J. Hilder for a long time. And I know him to be an honest man who cares about the country. He's a little sensational at times, but he's been in radio for many years, and that was his life. He's a showman. And he's not on radio an awful lot nowadays because of the subjects that he deals with. It's the same reason why you can't dial me in on your local AM station. People who tell the truth aren't too popular. Wasn't too long ago, Anthony got on a network, not a large network, but a network nonetheless, doing at least 3 hours a day on small stations across the country. Last night he was attacked by 4 assailants and shot in the stomach. I talked to him just a little while ago. In fact, I was supposed to be a guest on his radio broadcast today, and they told me his condition was serious, that he'd just come out of surgery to try to remove the bullet, which they were not able to do, and that he was beside himself worrying because he had to do his show because I was going to be the guest. So I wasn't here, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, when I discovered all of this. I had Annie call and assure him that I was not going to be his guest so that he could relax. Because I knew that Anthony would do his show anyway, And he did. Heavily sedated on morphine because a stomach wound is probably the most painful and most dangerous wound that you can incur besides a direct shot to the brain. He did a 3-hour radio broadcast today, and that should tell you something of the quality of this man. Because I had declined to be his guest, he was able to relax in his bed and leisurely do his show by telephone, and it did not seriously threaten his health. Now, folks, I am no big-time fellow when it comes to Anthony J. Hilder. The reason that he was so distraught and nervous, he was afraid he wasn't going to be able to do the show, and he'd scheduled me as his guest, and I'm a good friend. I'm also one of the leading warriors on the forefront of the battle against those who would destroy liberty, right along with Anthony and many others. And he has a great deal of respect, and we have a mutual, very deep understanding about what this is all for. And that's really why he was worried. Not because I'm some great star, but because of what we're mutually involved in, and because of how important it is to both of us to succeed. I remember the first time I met Anthony J. Hilder. It wasn't in person, it was on the telephone, as a matter of fact. He called me and wanted me to be a guest on his broadcast, Radio Free America, which he did in Alaska. In fact, Anthony at one point was a serious contender for the Senate of the United States in the state of Alaska. He was quite the political kingmaker up there. And if you didn't have the approval of Anthony J. Hilder on his radio broadcast, you didn't have much of a chance to get elected at one time. He eventually became so controversial that he lost that broadcast, as all of us always do when we're in a commercial media. You see, Americans like to talk about free speech, and they like to talk about truth, but when it comes right down to it, they really would rather not. And that's the truth, and that's the truth of the whole country, really. If you turn on your radio stations and you listen to the drivel, if you listen to people like Rush, who spends all day doing nothing but call the president names, and others who just endlessly ramble on about nonsense, you'll find out that it's true. Are people who have one guest one week who tells you one thing, and that host is right along with the guest? Oh, yeah, I've studied that, and I found out that that's just exactly the way it is, and lo and behold, 3 or 4 weeks later, they've got a guest that propounds the exact opposite point of view, and the host says, oh, yeah, I've studied that, and you're right. And the end result of that is the people listening are just spun continually around in circles in cul-de-sacs and the little eddies at the side of the river, and they never really get into the main current and go anywhere. Well, Anthony J. Hilder doesn't do that. He's an in-your-face kind of guy, just like I am. Always has been. I talked to him on the telephone that first time, and was a little taken aback because he used all these strange words I'd never heard before, like socialusion and evilarchy and warriors of Wall Street. And he's a great man for coining phrases. And if you've ever listened to his broadcast, he just continually comes out with these phrases that he coins on the spot that absolutely suit the requirement perfectly. And he wanted me to be a guest in his show, and at that time, nobody had ever heard of me. And he was a little adamant about what he wanted to talk about and the kind of response that he wanted from me. And I agreed to go on his broadcast and actually did quite a few with him. And I never could quite get a grasp on what we were doing or talking about because Anthony has so many things to talk about that he flips from subject to subject and he asks you questions about one thing, and when you're halfway through sort of expounding with your answer, thinking that you've got all kinds of time, he'll change the subject completely and ask you another question, come right out of left field. Well, I finally figured it out and learned how to shorten my answers so that I could answer the question before he changed the subject. And Anthony didn't do that to confuse the issue or to confuse his listeners. He's just always felt that there's so much that needs to be talked about, and there's so many things that people have to understand. He tries to get it all in every broadcast because he cares so deeply about each and every one of you. In fact, I'll tell you how much he cares. When the world found out that he was in the hospital and that he'd been shot in the gut, which is a terrible, terrible place to be injured. Slightest infection can result in death. It's the most painful wound that anyone can suffer. And I'm not saying this because I know anything about it because I've ever been shot in the stomach. No, but I did fight in a war. And I went through, I don't know how many first aid classes and battlefield dressing classes, and I don't know how many people I helped to dress their wounds and comfort them who had been shot in the stomach. So I have a little bit of knowledge, but not firsthand, about those things. Anyway, when the world found out that he had been shot and was in the hospital, there was a great scramble all over the country to find out which hospital he was in. And then, of course, well-meaning but not thinking, everyone has to call and talk to Anthony. Well, Anthony's in great pain, folks. And he's heavily sedated with morphine. So if you do get to talk to him, if you call, which you should not at this time, give him a few days to relax, to rest and to recover, at least somewhat. Don't be surprised if he says something completely out of left field, because number one, that's Anthony J. Hilder, and number two, that's what morphine does to people. He had people call my wife and wanted to speak to me. Well, I didn't get home until late this evening, and I talked to Anthony. And he was so concerned about what I would think and about what was happening, and he was so proud of himself because he had done his radio show, and I was, of course, so proud of him. Tremendous character. Tremendous man. Be shot in the stomach, come out of surgery, heavily sedated on morphine, and pull off a 3-hour radio show. Takes something that most people, if they have it, can't find it. Personally, I think it's in everyone. It just takes some people a long time to get in touch with what they're capable of doing. And that goes for thinking and using your brain. I think everyone has the same exact capabilities. Just some discover how to do it and get in touch with their strength, and others, for some reason, do not. Sometimes never do. Some people ultimately do, but it takes longer than others. Some people seem to be born with it. I can't really figure that out because it seems to be a product of experience and hardship and trial. Severe trial. That's what Anthony's undergoing now. I told him to ignore the telephone and don't allow visitors for a couple of days and just rest. He said, I can't. I said, what do you mean you can't? You've been shot in the stomach. You did a 3-hour broadcast today. I mean, you should just be glowing in your success so far. Because Anthony and I tend to look at things from the positive point of view rather than the negative. Everybody else would be wailing and crying. We celebrate the fact that he's not dead, that he came through the surgery, that he had the guts and the fortitude, the intelligence to peer through the fog of the morphine and do a radio broadcast for 3 hours. To me, that's all positive. That's all good. He said, I can't. What do you mean you can't? You deserve a rest. Tell the nurse to close the door, unplug the telephone, and go to sleep, my friend. Bill, I can't. Anthony, why can't you go to sleep? Why can't you rest? Because they're not awake yet. I can't rest until they're all awake. I know what's coming and you know what's coming, and I just can't rest. And then, of course, I understood. Because I don't rest too well either. In fact, before I did this broadcast, I was trying to catch a little sleep, because I haven't had any in the last 3 days. Literally, haven't had any in the last 3 days. I've been working around the clock. Because we really don't have any time left. And some of us do know what is coming. And even if we were coming from a purely selfish point of view, we can't survive without the help of everyone else. All of you. So we must continue and we must work. Anthony cannot rest. I'm not going to tell you what hospital he's in tonight because I don't want anybody else calling him. And you can call me whatever you want. You can say that that's selfish if you want and that you have a right to call him if you want. But pardon me, I just don't think so. I think he needs to rest. Tomorrow night I will tell you the name of the hospital where you can send flowers if you wish. And I sincerely hope that all of you will, because Anthony has been working at this for many, many years. Not too long ago, I played the 3-part series of The Illuminati, narrated by Myron Fagan. Myron Fagan was a hospital, you can tell what I've got on my mind. Myron Fagan was a Hollywood mogul. He was a bigwig in Hollywood. He knew all the big people and all the studios, and he was deeply involved in making movies, and he did all that wonderful research. And of course, Anthony helped and contributed what he knew. He wrote The Illuminati. Anthony produced it on 3 long-playing record albums, 3 LPs. And I know a lot of you who listened to that thought that that was brand new. But it wasn't. You see, The Illuminati was produced by Anthony J. Hilder and narrated by Myron Fagan way back in 1966. How about them apples? It's 30 years old, ladies and gentlemen. 30 years old. And it's right on top of it. Some of you may have guessed because of the content and the discussion, which purported to be current events, but which were in fact over 30 years old. But I know that some of you thought that that was current. A lot of the information pertains, factual, cannot be disputed by anyone, proves itself in even the most basic research. Some of it may never be proven. And Myron Fagan, of course, put it all together through people that he knows who are involved in all of these things. And sometimes that's the way it comes to me. You see, our enemies are arrogant beyond belief. I've actually sat down with some people whose names you would all recognize, and they have just flat told me the truth. Stating that if I used their names, they would just deny it, and of course that would make me look like an idiot. And chuckling that no one would ever believe it anyway. And eventually getting around to telling me that I was insane for wasting my time with the stupid masses. That I have a brain. Why don't I join them? They would make life very easy for me. And of course, I could never do that. The same thing, same conversations have transpired between Anthony and some of these people also. And of course, that's the way Myron Fagan got a lot of his information, on top of a lot of research. That was a monumental work that made Anthony J. Hilder an instant enemy of almost everyone in this country who has any power whatsoever. And so his life has not been easy. Has not been easy at all. And in recent years, he's found it very difficult to find work in radio. In fact, to tell you the truth, he's found it difficult to find work at all. So the fact that he's on radio now is a reason for all of us to rejoice. And I just hope that his condition doesn't cause him to lose the ability to do that broadcast, because it would be a great loss for all of us. And especially for so many people who have no idea what is happening, and who is in one of the small cities where one of these small radio stations broadcasts his program. He's only been on for a short time on this small network, and he's already beginning to do as he has always done: stir it all together with a long wooden spoon. The establishment would tell you, don't stir the beans, you'll get the burnt part off the bottom and we'll all be eating it. And Anthony says, screw you, I'm stirring the beans. And that's what he does very well. And so people are beginning to ask questions, and in these little towns, controversy is arising, and people are calling in who have never called radio shows before. And I'll be back to talk some more about my dear friend, Anthony J. Hilder.
A-N-E-R-I-K-A. Comrade Clinton is marching us towards the millennium. His agenda, a new world order. He intends to foreclose upon the people and the property of the United States of America. And her G-men of the UN said it was necessary to kill the congregation at Waco to save the children. Comrade Clinton guides us and guides us into surrendering our sovereignty piece by piece to a one world government.
Ladies and gentlemen, the hour of the time is brought to you by all of our good friends down at Swiss America Trading. And unlike other radio hosts who talk about their good friends during commercials, these really are my good friends. And when I say that, I mean it. You see, they wouldn't be sponsoring this broadcast if I didn't have complete faith in their product, in their honesty, in their ability and willingness to treat you fairly and resolve problems properly, if and when they ever arise. And of course, anything that I do, I must be able to attach my name to it with a clear conscience, knowing that my listeners who take advantage of the services that Swiss America offers will indeed derive real worth and benefit. It is one of the most important things that you can do when you get yourself straight. Stock market are buying a coin because in 6 months it's going to appreciate 30% and you're going to make money on it. That's not what I'm talking about. So if you want to talk about those things, you got to get with somebody who understands numismatics, and you got to be into numismatics, and you got to know what you're talking about. You got to know that the person you're talking to knows what they're talking about, and you've got to be willing to take a chance. And over the short run, it is, and always has been, as a matter of fact, when there are people who collect coins, who are willing to pay prices for those coins, which get scarcer and scarcer every year as the base of numbers of collectors grows every year, you can make a good appreciation upon an investment in numismatics, for an investment on a short term in order to acquire more capital to buy what you really need, real money. But whether or not you engage in that kind of activity is up to you. What I recommend is that you have your assets covered by real money. Real money is defined in the Constitution as, in Article 1, Section 8, no state shall tender in payment of debts anything other than gold or silver coin. So anything other than gold or silver coin is not constitutional money. The law further defines what money is. It is a specific weight of measurement and purity of silver coin. And when you have this exact specified weight and purity of silver minted in a coin, it is called a dollar. Anything else cannot be called a dollar. It also says that an equivalent value in gold coin is real money. But the basis of our money is a silver coin. It can also be an equivalent value in gold coin. But it must meet the exact requirements of the law. And it's the best example that I can give anyone who can pick up a copy of the Constitution for the United States of America and see instantly that the Constitution is not in effect. Those who set out to destroy the sovereignty of this nation and its economic base, what has allowed us to prosper over all other nations, these people are so arrogant, ladies and gentlemen, that they just flaunt it, openly declare themselves criminals by debasing our coinage without even changing the law to make it legal. They just do it, as they do so many other things. as they rip you off every year with the graduated income tax, which, by the way, is one of the planks of the Communist Manifesto, the method whereby the middle class is eventually, over a long period of time, impoverished and eliminated. It's the whole purpose of it. Did you know, according to my research into Title 26, United States Code, and 26 Code of Federal Regulations, you don't have to keep records unless the district director of Internal Revenue serves you a notice that you have to keep records. The purpose of serving you the notice to keep records is so that he can examine those records and determine if you are required to file a return. And once you file a return, if, and only if, and you are only required to file a return if you have been noticed by the district director once your records have been examined that you were noticed to keep for that examination. Only then do you have to file a return, and then only if that return has been filed will you have to pay income tax based upon the examination of the return by the district of director and the findings that you do indeed have to pay an income tax depending upon your status and whether or not you have income from certain activities described in the law. We've all been scammed, folks. And it's all going to come down around our ears. And this next issue of Veritas might bring it down around our ears because it's going to finally tell the truth about the lie and the real status of the pure trusts administered by the Secretary of the Treasury, whose beneficiaries have never been revealed, the settler of which has never been revealed, of the Internal Revenue Service and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, which, ladies and gentlemen, turn out to be exactly the same organization. So call Swiss America Trading and start getting yourself ready now, because when it all comes down, if you don't have some real money, you're not going to make it through the chaos that's going to follow. 1-800-289-2646. Do it now. You'll be glad you did. That's 1-800-289-2646. Anthony, in his flair, would say, go for the gold.
What's happened to you, America? Have you lost both your will to win and your mind? Would you willingly turn your children over to the Hitlerian health Gestapo to be immunized with a mark? Will you allow your kids to be numbered like animals, as were the Jews and Gypsies in Nazi concentration camps, so they could be tracked and controlled from cradle to grave, and not raise your gun nor your voice? Have you bought Clinton's big lie and rejected the uncomfortable truth? How we so brain-dead and fantasy-led as to be politically correct rather than spiritually right. America, God help us. Haven't you learned? The earth was betrayed 2,000 years before. It was the world's greatest loss. When they raised their liberal hammer and nailed him to the cross.
Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is A.J. Hilder at his best. Very best. He has a flair. He has an ability, a talent to communicate far beyond most. He has a talent with the language and his ability to to invent words on the spur of the moment that fit the occasion absolutely wonderfully. One of my favorite words that he has coined is socialusion. I love it. I don't use it a lot because I don't like to take credit for what other people have done. But I love that word, and I do use it occasionally when it fits. It fits. It fits so many things so perfectly. Socialusion. It is the perfect method of allowing people to understand that socialism is in fact an illusion. The promise never materializes. The promise is that you're going to gain something from nothing. Your life is going to be easier. Someone's going to take care of you like your daddy did when you were little. But what happens is you become burdened and responsible to pay the cost of what you thought was free. And when you accept the benefit, you in effect actually and in reality become enslaved by the benefactor. You see, it's always been a basis of the common law that whoever accepts a benefit from another also agrees to be guided and told and supervised in how the benefit can be used. It also obligates you to the benefactor, who can then call upon you to perform a reimbursement of the obligation. Socialusion. What a wonderful word. Anthony J. Hilder invented it. Out of his mind on the spur of a moment, on one memorable balmy California night. See, I spent many hours in many different cities across this country, sitting over a nice, wonderful snifter of rare brandy, talking for hours with Anthony about a lot of things. You see, because he has appeared on the rostrum on many stages and events and gatherings of people with me. And many of these late night conversations ultimately became subjects of discourse on this program. I can never be an Anthony J. Hilder. I'm not that flamboyant, and I don't have that sense of sensationalism that he has, that he brings across. I mean, when he comes on the air, if you've never heard Anthony J. Hilder before, instantly, within just a few seconds, he will have you listening intently, sitting up on the edge of your chair, wondering what he's going to say next. Forcing the wheels in your mind to turn and the gears to mesh together and make connections that never had been made before. And of course, like anyone who tells the truth, and especially anyone who tells the truth through sensationalism, he will make you angry. You'll want to reach up and strangle the radio. He's had that effect upon me a couple of times. I've actually yelled at my radio, "Anthony, don't do that. You're turning off your audience." But he did it anyway. And the controversy rages because of it. And every time I've said, "Anthony, don't do that," screamed at the radio, I was always wrong. So I don't do that anymore. I do it here. I have the sense of what my audience will accept and what they will not. And since my goal is to educate those who will be educated, I aim my broadcast at them. Those who will not, I just flatly don't care about. That's the way I do it. But Anthony, in your face. His personality is so strong that I have seen him go to be a guest on someone else's broadcast and literally take the program, the show, right out, away from them, and run away with it. And you see this host sitting there behind his own microphone on his own show, absolutely flabbergasted and beside himself and lost, without the intellectual capability to catch up with Anthony or to even know what it is that he's talking about. And that is a sight to see. I've been there when this has happened. And while I have empathy and feel a little sorry for the host who's lost his show, I cheer this great talent that was able to do that. For you don't win battles by standing on the sidelines and being polite and waiting for someone else to go first. It just doesn't happen. And there is no defensive position that can not ultimately be overcome. So those who are just dripping with politeness and are always worried about what someone else is going to think of them or what they say seldom win battles. Oh, everybody thinks they're very nice, but they just don't win the battles. And those who take the defensive position and are always defending their point of view or defending this or defending that or defending a liberalism or a conservatism or something like that, they don't win battles either. They just sort of come off as being wishy-washy fence sitters, no matter what they espouse as their own point of view. And usually with those kinds of people, it's very hard to get them to espouse anything at all as their own original point of view, because then they have to make a commitment. And to make a commitment is to go on the attack. You win battles by finding the weakness of the enemy and probing those weaknesses with all of your strengths until the enemy is overcome and leaves the battlefield. And when that happens, you stand victorious. And ladies and gentlemen, regardless of what you've taught your children or what you were taught by your parents all your life, that is the only thing that counts ultimately, is who won the battle. All this bullshit that they tell your children and that we were told in school about, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game, is a lie. It is a lie. If you don't believe me, and if you don't believe Americans believe that it's a lie, you watch the next Super Bowl and see which team is carried off the field by the crowd and which team walks away with their head hung low, ignored at the end of the game. Americans have always understood this fact up until recent years. They seem to be losing it now. Anthony understands it, and I understand it, and our enemies understand it. You can be sure. Anthony will fight this battle until he's dead. The wound that he has suffered, while the doctors say that he has a good chance for a good recovery at this moment, I happen to know that stomach wounds can turn at any moment. You see, Anthony could be fighting his last battle. I don't believe that, but I have prepared myself in case it turns out to be true. And tomorrow night, when I give the name of the hospital, I hope that all of you will at least send him a little card or something to tell him that all of the years of standing in the front lines, taking the brunt of the attack, and returning it with all of the strength and the capabilities and the wonderful talent that he has been recognized by those that he has attempted so valiantly and so many, many times with everything that he has ever had to help. None of us who fight these battles ever get rich. There is no money to be made in this. Only a prayer and a sincere desire that liberty will prevail. If you want to get rich, you tell people what they want to hear, never what they don't want to hear. Anthony barely makes it from week to week and month to month. And don't bother sending him donations because he'll send it back to you. He's not that kind of person. And that's not what I'm fishing for. I'm fishing for your recognition. If you have not recognized it upon your own, that Anthony J. Hilder is indeed an American hero. Not because he stood on some foreign soil and deluded himself that he was fighting in defense of the Constitution because his country sent him there, but because he stands upon American soil. And when everyone else is afraid to stand up and fight for liberty because it is dangerous, he has never failed to do it. He's not just my friend, he's my dear friend. And I have in the past and will in the future go to extreme lengths to help him whenever he needs it, whether he asks or not. I would not trade one of the conversations that I've had with Anthony J. Hilder at any time that I've known him for anything in this entire world that anyone could ever offer. He's a gentleman, too. He's extremely kind to everyone that he meets. And he is, and I know this to be a fact, prepared if he has to die in defense of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the liberty that it guarantees. I am so sorry that this happened to him, and I don't know if it was an attempted robbery or if someone was angry because of one of his broadcasts, or that these goons were hired by the enemies of liberty in an attempt to silence him, and I don't think anyone else is going to know either. And it doesn't matter. And I'll bet you anything that no matter what condition Anthony J. Hilder is in, he will do 3 hours tomorrow on radio mind fogged by morphine, in great pain, not knowing whether he's going to pull through or whether this is his last battle. So I thought that whether he recovers or whether he does not recover, and for some strange reason, you all needed to know these things. I love Anthony J. Hilder as much as I could love any man on this earth. He is my brother. Good night, ladies and gentlemen, and God bless each and every single one of you. And from Anthony, so that he can rest, please wake up.
All of a sudden, in the middle of the night, there's a loud knock on your door. Hey, honey, something's not right.
Throw out your arms. Step out fast. We're here from the government. We're here to help you.
And I'm from the IRS with a power to tax. If you've got a complaint, send us a fax.
Get out of this house. Serve your guns. Give me your gold. You better obey if you want to go. Now seduce them and do what you're told.
Hillary Shalala, Reno Janet Dyke, reading the words of General Albert Pike, demonic founder of the Ku Klux Klan, engineer of the Masonic Master Plan. Pike said Lucifer is God across this land, and Clinton saying take the mark in your right hand. While we're all dancing to the drums of the Fourth Reich, Clinton's preparing it for another huge tax hike. Order out of chaos, depression, inflation, create the panic and rape the nation. Crisis creation, incite black and white, program agitation.
Don't resist! You're surrounded! By the UN in white and brown, the ATF, the men in black, on the one world order.
But it's not new. Iron Mountain, computer beasts, and cattle mutilations. Black projects, UFOs, and weird genetic combinations. The Nazi doctors didn't die? Come on, get hip. They came here with the OSS through Operation Paperclip. National ID? Debit card? Yeah. Vaccination biochip, milk carton kids, genetic engineering. Clinton says her health plans for you and your own good. Sure. And Adolf Hitler's Robin Hood. Masonic mind manipulation, inciting riots, it's crisis creation. Biochip implantation, vaccinate your kid for UN identification.
This is a test for all of us. So I have today just one simple request. A comprehensive package of healthcare benefits that's always there and can never be taken away. Never be taken away.
Atmospheric social illusion.